Welcome to Sober Talk. I'm Dennis and I'm an alcoholic. Sober today thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or visit their website at aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for a membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Yeah, I'm Peter. I'm a recovering alcoholic, but also I need to add that for me, it's I'm also classify myself as an addict too. Alcohol was never enough for me. I always needed something else, but kind of refer to myself even as a bit of an everything-aholic, and it's something I've heard shared in the rooms of AA about. It's a step number one is recognizing your powerlessness, and this thing about being powerless over people, places, and things, and anything that kind of draws me out of me, or really my relationship to something that isn't part of that addictive self or that dis-ease, which is sort of what alcoholism is really about, a dis-ease. So it's been a long time for me to come to accept that I could never, through willpower or a change of attitude or a different way of looking at my relationship to drinking or drugs, that I could ever really get control of them or stop. For many years, I would acknowledge that I had an issue or a substance abuse problem or whatever it was, and I always thought it was about trying to find balance. I just find like everything has a balance, and if I only do this much or that much, or only in these times in my life, it never lasts very long. And coming into more genuine sobriety through being in AA, I've been able to see clearly, a lot clearer anyway, through looking back through my life, that those attempts at being sober, being straight, were filled with a sense of despair, is one way I would describe it, which were always leading me back to those destructive patterns and behaviors of alcohol consumption and drugs and whatever else that goes with that. But I have had my first drink at 12 years of age, and I'm 50 years old now. And again, to be this age and to look back through my life and to see with some clarity, oh, this wasn't normal, by the age of 14, to realize that from the age of 14, I have not been able to go probably longer than 6 months in my life without a drink or a drug, just to get by, to cope with my emotions, to cope with my feelings and thoughts and the realities of life and the stresses and strains of everyday things. And I suppose there's, I've always thought in some way that, and I think our society sometimes reflects that, our culture reflects that back, that it's normal to have to have a drink or whatever, and it's a big part of certainly of a culture in Australia. And the difference, of course, is when you're someone like myself and any other alcoholic or person with drug addictions, there is no control, there is no stopping, there is no break. I know for me, in my days of heavy use of drugs and alcohol, it was always all or nothing. There was no end game. There was no real point at which I was going to say 2 drinks or however. It was always, how many have you got until I don't exist anymore? It's like it was all about sort of obliterating my consciousness, going into oblivion. And I've seen that reflected in the people I've known in my life who fall into that category too, and certainly people in my family where um, the amount of excess was in some way uh, seen as normal. It was, if I mean, speaking for myself and what I grew up around, seeing the level of consumption of those things was in excess, and that was, I thought it was normal. Uh, and when I began to drink and smoke marijuana and things like that, in some way there's some kind of badge of honor or pride in that, but being 14, 15 years old and thinking that this is what you do, this is, I mean, it's a cliche thing, but it's like you're a teenager and you think it's cool, but I didn't, I mean, you're too young, but I was never able to have known or seen that I was setting up a whole trajectory of something that I could never stop. And, um, I mean, in the big book of AA, and members will talk about it, and we too talk about it, the disease of alcohol and the sense of that, it's a genetic thing. It's a brain thing, and um, it can be a matter of opinion to say that. But I know certainly for me, I, I can see how at the very least I was destined to become that. I was destined on that path through my life to end up being an alcoholic, to end up being a drug addict, to a drug. That saying the drug addict sounds very harsh. It's got a lot of negative things to it. I mean, personally, for me, a lot of it was marijuana use, but at various times, methamphetamine as well, and other various things that I could have gotten a lot worse with. But I want to say, by the grace of God, to be honest, in my opinion, I didn't get too far down the road with that. But I think it's important from my perspective, and for anyone listening, that, and I've seen it in the rooms of AA, that perhaps most alcoholics and longer term people, it's more about alcohol. But as I said earlier, for me, it was never enough. Certainly my journey started with, my experience with all of it started with alcohol, but that was never enough for me. And strangely, in some way, I think uh, perhaps it was a blessing to a degree, because at points in my life I could drink so much alcohol that if I hadn't had something else in the mix, I may have very easily drank myself to death, because taking some marijuana or something else kind of, I don't know, made it harder for me to drink as much, perhaps, let's say. And it's something I've reflected on in my time. Maybe that sounds a bit funny, but maybe someone out there can relate to that. But I found through my life, the points in my life where I tried to cut back, and this is especially with alcohol, and I certainly seen that with my use of marijuana too, that I could never, if I was able to stop for a few months or whatever it was, if I was sober, if I remained sober, it was just a funny journey for me to actually get to AA. I don't think it's like, for me, I had to hit the bottom, I had to hit some kind of, for me, it was like a spiritual, emotional, psychological rock bottom. It wasn't so much about ending up literally physically in the gutter, but emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually being kind of bereft in myself, that I just didn't want to be the person that I was anymore, the way I've been. I couldn't handle my own bullshit anymore, the amount of sort of lying to myself and lack of honesty in myself and my ability to be true to other people. And so much for me that is about being able to connect with my feelings and emotions and being able to deal with them. And so much of my use of alcohol and drugs was all about that for me. Just not being able to be comfortable with myself, and in that also comfortable in the relationships I've been in. And it's a funny thing. It's like all this stuff about your ego being able, the alcoholic has this, it's a common thing. I know for me, the inflated sense of self, the inflated ego, but the very low self-esteem on the other end. And it's something that, this is a term I'm sure some people have heard, but excuse me, it's something I've heard a certain member say a few times about the alcoholic or the ego thing. It's this thing of, don't they realize how important I think I am? It's a strange mentality, but it's funny how the ego part of the alcoholic can achieve a lot of things, because it certainly happened for me that at points in my life I was quite successful in life, in career and even in relationships, and in my ability to, be a good, decent human being. But inside there was something very wrong, and I was always trying to run from that, and it was like an inevitable crumbling of things in my life that I had to keep turning to a drink or a drug to cope. Um, and you know, I've in my short time I've been with AA 4 months, and well, I had my first meeting about a year ago, and it's March now, March 2025, and went to my first meeting in February last year, 2024, and it was very confronting for me to listen to the stories, and it really broke me down emotionally, and it spoke to me on that deep level. It really moved me, but I didn't really know how to cope with that, and it took me quite a few months later to really come out of the denial I was in, and that was through being honest with myself more, and as I said earlier, hitting that bottom, and AA was the place that I needed to go to. It's funny how it worked for me. Being AA, I would have never believed that, but I also recognized there was no way I was ever going to end up there until I was ready. But the thing I was going to say that there's therapy, there's rehab, and I've heard this more than a few times already in the rooms of AA from new members, old members, and that's certainly been my experience, that those things, rehab, counseling, other sorts of therapies, which there's many, they can be helpful, but there's it seems to me that it's something like got to be at least 90%, maybe 99% of people, and I'll speak for me too, that those things, there's always a relapse, and this is something that's been brought up recently in some meetings, just that recognition that is, I guess I'm speaking for myself, but I know it's not certainly for many, for other AA members too, that it's the spiritual aspect of what's missing in those things with rehab and counseling and so on, that AA has the spiritual aspect. And through my years, really, I've been always certain part of my life that a lot of my drinking and drug use was associated to that too, like wanting to touch God or find God or whatever that is. And I don't know why I'd always end up turning back to drink and drugs, because that wasn't something that ever left me just when I stopped for a few months or however long. There's a taboo or a stigma about anything to do with the idea of God, but I know for me that there was something that when I realized that I was trying to stop, and that was over a period of years on and off, but when it came to the bottom to me, where there was this, I will just say it, a sense of real desperation, that I realized that I couldn't stop, even though I really wanted to, and that I needed help. And not that I hadn't asked or spoken to friends about these things sometimes, that I have a problem and I can't stop, and they might have a suggestion or even offer help. There was something missing. And when I really, this is what happened for me, but and I've heard it shared by others, but I just had that, I just sort of cried out somewhere inside me that I can't do this. So if there's anything that can help me, please help me. And it's the strangest thing. I live in a country town, and it's the most uncanny thing. I've been here for a couple of years, and it was not long after I made that plea. I was driving down the road, and I just turned my head, and there it was. There was an AA sign, and a meeting was on, and it was just like a tap on the shoulder from something. And in coming to sobriety, or even just really getting serious about it with myself, I wanted to be there. I wanted to stop it, and something reached out to me. But I recognized through my life, and again, I've heard these stories from other members, the amount of things that happened to me through my drinking and drug use, the amount of times I nearly died, should have died, don't know how I survived. I can't deny there was something. I don't know what it was, but there was something watching over me. I want to say that because I can't explain it any other way. And I've seen it play out in other people's lives that I've known and still know to this day, who are still perhaps in the grip of drink or drugs, that there's something keeping them until it's, I guess it's your time's up. Everybody's time's up eventually. But and on that note, I've said to myself recently, we never know how much longer we've got. And I used to think of that. In AA, it's so much about one day at a time, and you've only got this moment now that you're living in. In my days of drinking and drugging, that was a And we'll hear that, a lot. I used to hear that a lot from other people. It's like, that's an excuse to drink, just have a good time. But it's funny how your thinking changes when you realize this is not, it's fun. It's great. You have great times when you're drinking and carrying on like that. But I know for me, ultimately, I was miserable and I didn't want to be in that anymore. It was more and more that the longer it went on, the more and more I needed it to escape the misery. And there was just no escape in the end. And again, that's another one that I've heard said. It's like you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, with everything, but how you're feeling and how you're living. But my view of that idea of one day at a time, like live for the now. So let's just have a drink has changed completely. If I only have one day left, I want it to be sober. I want to be aware of what's going on. And for me, coming into better sense of clarity in my mind, like I've been able to look back at things in my life and see, sadly, the mess I made of things that I didn't intend, but I wasn't able to be present in life. Sober to me is, at the moment, it's so much about, I want to experience life. Life is not always going to be good. It's not going to be bad either. Stuff's going to happen, good and bad. But when I look back through my life of drinking and drugging, and the good things I wasn't fully there for, and the bad things I wasn't there for those very, very much either, and I don't want to live that way. I want to experience life and be present in it, and be there for people, be there with my own feelings and actually participate in life. And that's what I seen that, for me, staying on drink and drugs was just not living at all, as much as I thought at points I was really alive, I was dying inside. And that's kind of at this point today. And this is some of the things I've been reflecting on the last couple of days. That's like the greatest gift that I've gotten from going to AA and being in the rooms of AA. And the other thing that I'd like to say is I never thought until I went to AA, I've had some great friends in my, well, not that many, but I've had a couple of good friends in my life. And going back to my younger days, we were drinkers and druggers and we had a great time and we were great mates, but I don't know where they are now. And these people don't seem to stick around. But I never thought, it wasn't until I went to AA that I felt heard, I felt understood. I didn't think there was other people that I could speak to and say the things and share the things that I'm saying now, I guess, too. And someone would actually go, I relate, I understand and identify. And I've been amazed that even though we come from different backgrounds and the stories are different, there's so many things no matter what someone shares, I always identify with something that, it's not a surface thing, it's something very deep. And that is an amazing thing to experience. For anyone that is thinking, oh, maybe I've got a problem, you've got nothing to lose by going to AA. And I would say it wouldn't take you long to work out that you don't belong there. If you start identifying with those stories, and if you're not sure if you're really an alcoholic, so to speak, you might think you've just got a drinking problem or something. But that's, as I was saying at the beginning about the culture of, some people can have a couple of drinks and it's fine, but the alcoholic and someone like myself and others where you can't, I could never stop and I change. I'm not the same person. And when I take drinking drugs, if I just did that for one day, and I stopped for a week, I'm not the same person even for the rest of that week. It does something to me that I can't explain. And it takes me so long to try and get back to some kind of sense of whatever normal is. But by going to meetings and participating in the program of AA, it's given me that sent like a lifeline to life, if that makes sense. I've never. It's not easy to be sober. It's easier. I can understand that part of it. It's like easier to take a drink or a drug because you're escaping. But how long can you do that for? And as I said before, I'd rather live life and be present in life and actually feel life than be half here. But yeah, some of the people I've met in AA in my short time, I feel so blessed to know them. And as I said, I never really thought those people were out there, and I've never thought people could understand like they do without, me understand them too. And it's an amazing program to be involved in. And I said recently in a meeting, I shared it to you, Dennis, I think yesterday, but this concept for me about, I realize, it's one day at a time, like, who knows? But if you commit to the program, you commit to yourself with it, and you commit to something, to whatever God is as we understand him to be. And there's no guarantee, lifelong members, 30, 40 years, can still pick up a drink. But if I ended up back on the drink, back on the whatever, I would never forget what AA's done for me already, and God forbid that I do ever pick up a drink and drug again. But I would always tell someone, go to AA, So that's what I have to say. You've got nothing to lose by going there. And it's funny, I mean, everyone's experience with it is probably quite personal, and how they relate to it, how they get in there, how the story, but there's some really deep, important common threads, that there's something special going on in the rooms of AA. And if you can go there and just, it's you hear this, shut your mouth and open your ears, you'd be surprised what it can do for you. And as I say, you got nothing to lose. And I love some of the older members say about, just give it 3 months, and if you're not happy, you can have your misery back. It's it kind of works like that too. But I don't know, for me, there's no turning back. Once, especially once I got those first few meetings into me where I took it serious, I was like, oh man, it's confronting, it's powerful, and that's a good thing. I'll say for myself that I have a lot of respect for AA, and for the people, the fellowship of AA, and the long-term members like yourself, Dennis, and others who, if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't exist if you keep it going, and to be, for example, members there that are 40 years sober, even 20, 30 years, people might think, why do they keep going back? And that's a really good question, because that's how important it is, and that's the reality of it too. And I mean, I'll just say, for me, I always hope that, I can be in the rooms one day and be that person too. And I understand how important it is for the older members, that the new people come in, and I think it's AA is going to be pretty important as we move forward in time in life, because there's a lot of people, I think, struggling with issues like this. So
keep coming back, Peter.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Let's keep coming back.
AA has more than 2 million recovering alcoholics throughout the world. In Australia, there are about 18,000 members. They meet in over 2,000 local meetings spread around the country. Meetings range in size from a handful in some areas to hundreds or more in larger communities. And once again, if anyone is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous in 1300 222222, or visit their website on aa.org.au.